First of all, Florian, thanks for joining us here on Astro Supersport. It's really nice to meet you. Everyone's excited for a brand new Premier League season with fans back in the stadium. But frankly, it's been a bit of a rough start to the season for Arsenal, at least in the Premier League. And as someone who's been with the club, say, since you were 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken, you live and breathe Arsenal. How are you personally handling this tricky situation?
Yeah, firstly, it's nice to meet you guys as well. But yeah, regarding the way we've started the season, I mean, like many of the boys have said, the league's not decided in the first 2 or 3 games. So I mean, of course, it was tough for me personally, being my first season in the first team. But I know that I need to keep my head up, and it's not. I mean, the first 2 games don't decide the whole season, so there's still a lot of positives.
I'm a little bit curious there. What's been the message from the gaffer, from Mikel Arteta in the dressing room to help you guys cope with the situation?
Yeah, the message from the boss has just been to relax. I mean, to make sure that you need to keep things moving. He's made an effort to keep the morale around the camp very high. So I mean, yeah, I mean, he doesn't want us to start to feel bad or start to lose motivation, because I mean, this doesn't help anyone.
Well, let's talk about you then. It's like you said, your first season with Arsenal, at least in the first team and the senior team. That first game of the season, you were handed a spot in the starting 11. Must have been incredibly exciting for you, even regardless of the results. How did that feel for you personally when you knew you were going to be in the starting 11 as you step out onto the pitch that day?
Yeah, there was a few absentees that we had last minute. So when I was approaching the ground, I knew that I might have a chance to be in with a start. And then the boss showed us the team, and then when I saw my name up top, I was just a bit shocked, a bit like excited. There was just loads of emotions coming to me, but I then tried to reset myself to just focus on the job at hand.
I mean, it's must been a lot of emotions. I mean, after earning your stripes with the underage teams as well, who was the first person you called with that news? I'm curious.
I didn't actually call anyone because we had a team dinner. I mean, like a team like pre-match, so we couldn't really. We're around the table. We're not really allowed on our phones. So I just. But before we went to that, I just sent a text to my family in the group chat saying I'm starting, and then I could just feel my phone vibrating in my pocket. So I just knew that they was all just messaging me saying good things.
Well, they must have been happy for you. And I'm sure you know a man called Martin Keown, an absolute legend. He's compared your style of play to Ian Wright. So when you look at the old footages of Ian Wright, do you see similarities between yourself and Ian? How would you describe your style of play?
I would describe my style of play as very direct. I think I like to be on the shoulders. I like to also receive the ball to the feet. I think I like to score goals like many other strikers, but I think it's not just about the goals for me. I think I like to be involved in the play, to help the team to progress up the pitch.
If you were to say it mimics a particular Arsenal legend or a former Arsenal player, is there someone that you say you're similar to?
I wouldn't, I wouldn't really, I wouldn't really say I'm similar to any Arsenal legend, because, I mean, these are Arsenal legends for a reason. So I think, yeah, I would say there may be similarities, but parts of my games which are similar. But I wouldn't really say overall that I'm similar to any Arsenal legend.
Okay, not similarities then, but obviously you know about all the Arsenal legends all throughout. You didn't particularly grow up in Ian's era, but while you were growing up playing in the academy, who was the one Arsenal player that you looked up to the most?
I think definitely THIERRY, Henry. I think there was a time when I think maybe we was 14, and he come in for coaching, and I mean, just he was just such a cool guy. I mean, he was just giving us loads of tips, and yeah, it was just nice to be able to just learn from one of the best.
All right. So I'm sure you're well aware of the rumors of interest circulating around you. Even at one point in 2020, you were linked to a move away from the club. But of course, you chose to eventually commit your future with Arsenal. How did you come to that decision? And what sort of compelled you to sign a long-term deal with Arsenal?
Yeah, to be honest, it wasn't really like I was convinced to make that decision. It was something that I knew I wanted to do for a long time. even though it's something I knew I wanted to do, I still had to have a lot of meetings with the boss and with Edu to obviously just go over things, go over a plan, like a project for myself. So I wouldn't really say I was convinced, but I would say that it was a process that did take a long time, just the way football can be sometimes.
Well, you're talking about project as one. I want to talk about the Arsenal project. Have you had any sort of extensive conversation with Mikel Arteta about his plans for the club, without giving too much away, of course?
Of course. The boss just tells me to keep faith, and part of the reason I signed was because I had faith in him and in the project he's trying to do. Of course, the boss has a style of playing. He has a philosophy like every other coach would. But I think it's just a case of believing in what he says. I mean, it's clear he wants the ambition he has for the club. He wants us back in Europe, fighting for top trophies and competing at the highest level again.
And speaking of competing at the highest level, that's quite a fair amount of competition, particularly in the positions that you specialize in, Folarin. And it's definitely going to be difficult to break into the first team regularly, as per with any great squads, of course. But do you look at someone like Bukayo Saka, someone who is of a similar age to you, maybe went through a similar journey with you, as a bit of an inspiration for that?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think it'd be impossible for me to try and break into the first team without looking at someone like B as inspiration. I think he's done what millions of kids across the world dream of doing. So yeah, of course, I look at B as inspiration, what he does, and it just gives me motivation as well that I can do the same.
Are you guys close, by the way? I'm not sure if you guys were in the same age group growing up.
Yeah, me and B have played together a lot throughout the academy. We've played together, I think, at 15, 16s, right up the way to even the first team. So yeah, I would say me and B are close.
Who would you say you're the closest to then in the Arsenal dressing room?
Funny enough, I'd probably say B or Emil.
Yeah, so it's those around your same age, the ones you sort of grew up with. Yeah, that makes complete sense. But one thing I think a lot of England fans and Nigeria fans would want to find out, is it England or Nigeria? I mean, when it comes to the national setup, of course, you've made appearances for England, not in the senior team, in the underage teams, but the Nigerian door is still open. You have strong ties to both nations. At this point in time, what are you feeling at the minute? What are you most inclined towards at the moment?
At this point in time, it's actually not something I've thought about. I think it's just something that I think will come naturally to me one day. I think I'm not really trying to chase the answer, because I think that's when I just add more pressure and more expectation of myself. I feel like the answer will just come to me. But definitely, I mean, I have love for all like both places, England and Nigeria. So I mean, definitely it's something that will come to me, but I haven't thought of it right now at this moment.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see then what your decision will be. Just one final one for me. As we've mentioned time and time again, you've been with Arsenal for so long, since you were so young. I'm curious, who was the first person to sort of introduce you to your love of football? Who convinced you could be a footballer today?
I would say, of course, my family has a big say in that. But I feel like in particular my brother, when we was playing football, I mean, he was obviously older than me, and there was times where I'm beating him. So of course he's telling me, if you're beating me and you're younger than me, then of course you're gonna be better than people your age. So I had a feeling from when I was about maybe 8 or 9 that maybe there could be a potential in football for me. But of course you don't know until you actually do it.
So will he admit it if I ask him today, who's the better footballer, you or him? He's going to say you.
I'm not sure. I mean, he has a lot of pride, but I think he should say me, but...
Right. Great stuff, Lauren. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. And of course, we wish you for the rest of the season. Wish you all the best.